Hello. Hi, everybody. We're so excited for you to join us today. We're excited to be accompanied by our friends from Uplers as well. We partner with Uplers in India, and we're excited to talk to you about what they do today. Today's webinar is going to be about how to hire and manage remote teams in India. As many of you know, India is the most populous country in the world. It's also one of the world's fastest growing economies. So for all sorts of businesses at different stages and sizes, India has to be a part of your business strategy. And so this is going to be a great discussion. I'm honored to be joined by Jaimin Bhuptani, founder and CEO of Uplers. And then for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Hewson. I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Remofirst. Remofirst is an employer of record, and we're a provider of contractor payment solutions. And we help our clients employ talent in 150 countries around the world, including in amazing locations like India. So clients take advantage of our local infrastructure and our expertise so that they don't have the hassle of having to set up local entities or the risk of independent contractor engagements. We handle the compliance, the payroll, while the clients get all the benefits of accessing talent anywhere in the world. And so with that, Jaimin, if you don't mind, if you could share a few words about Uplers and how you support your clients.
Yes, thanks a ton, Dave. Right, super excited to be part of this webinar, and this topic is very near and dear to Uplers. Right, so hey everyone, this is Jaimin, CEO at Uplers. At Uplers, we help global companies hire top talent from India who are deeply vetted and global ready. So when I say deeply vetted and global ready, so we have a network of 200,000 tech and digital professionals across 100 different skill sets. And this network is of professionals who are great at communication, great at technical skills, are great at behavioral aspect, who are remote ready. And yeah, we take pride in placing Indian talents in amazing companies. And yeah, that's what Plus is all about. We make your hiring reliable, simple, and fast, especially from India.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jaimin. So now, just to introduce the agenda for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to dive into a few interesting topics. So one, we're going to work to understand the potential that a market like India represents for business leaders. I already mentioned, it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and we know what an amazing talent pool India boasts as well. We're going to get into a discussion about some of the challenges that could come along with building a team in India. And ideally, obviously, we'll point out some solutions to some of those challenges. We'll cover some best practices and some success stories from clients that we've worked with, that Jaimin has supported. And then, of course, we'll get into some audience Q&A toward the end as well. So with that, Jaimin, are you ready? I'll probably throw the first question to you. So you're coming live from India today, and you're the one that's built a successful business helping people hire and access talent in India. So if you could just, kind of give us your sense of an overview of where India's economy is today, and maybe a few minutes on the talent pool that companies have access to there as well. It'd be great to use that as a scene setter.
Oh, yes, Dave. So yeah, India is the most populous country, fastest growing country, and India is also the youngest country in the world, right? We have the youngest population. But beyond that, I think, talking about Indian tech talent ecosystem, it's a massive talent ecosystem. So there are statistical reports which very clearly mention that, by 2030, India would be the only country across the globe who would have surplus of tech and financial talent, right? So we see that Indian talent ecosystem could be a great answer to that talent crunch, the globe is facing today. Uh, Before we jump into, more into Indian talent ecosystem, let's also understand why companies hire from India. Right? Typically, two main reasons. One is, massive availability of quality talent, as I just mentioned, and second, cost advantage, because the cost of living in India is lower compared to Western world, say United States, UK, and many other countries. Uh, and to know about, Indian talent ecosystem, what is today, or what is the future of it, it is important to learn from the history, right? That hey, how this talent ecosystem has evolved over decades. right? So the tech industry in India started back in 1980. So I think it is around 4 decades
Mhm,
of that tech talent development.
mhm,
Early days, we know those companies, Tata Consultancy, Infosys, and there are many more, which started their operations mainly, back office software development in India.
mhm,
Uh, and they were supported by the education institutes, and that's how the talent ecosystem evolves, right?
mhm,
For
mhm,
example, Silicon Valley today would not be without Stanford. So
mhm,
the same way government really pushed across the tech education system within India, institutes like IITs,
mhm,
from where we see the global Indian CEOs of today,
mhm.
say Sundar Pichai
Right.
or Satya Nadella, right?
Mhm,
Uh, they studied from there, and then they moved to US, and now they are operating large scale businesses. So that tech education system has really played amazing role in building this talent ecosystem.
mhm.
And today we have a network of over 4,500 engineering colleges in India, which produces around 500,000 fresh engineers every year. They have considered 500,000 engineers coming to market
Mhm,
every year, right? So that's how massive the
mhm,
talent ecosystem is. Uh, in total, if you see, we are, the largest tech talent ecosystem across the globe.
mhm,
India, surpassed US in 2021.
mhm.
It's a 6 million professional, and it
Wow.
is estimated that will reach around 8 million in next 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
So it's a massive talent ecosystem. If I talk about how the industry is, structured in India, right? So there are, and that has also shaped up in last 4 decades,
Mhm,
right? Industry started with those IT service and BPO companies, like as I mentioned, Tata Consultancy Services, right? We call it TCS, which employs around 600,000 employees today. Infosys, right, which employs around 365,000 employees today. And there are, many more who employ, massive talent base. So that is one area, right? IT service companies, which typically helps, global companies for their software development, digitalization needs, and now, they are also venturing into, AI and ML and latest tech.
mhm,
The second largest ecosystem we have is of foreign companies coming to India and setting up their development center, their center of excellence.
mhm,
Uh, like for example, you name any large tech company,
mhm,
right? Facebook, Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, or tech, any BFSI, say Citibank, or even the startups like Epsilon or Eventbrite, and there are many. So in total, there are more than 1,700 global companies who have come to India, and they have set up their offices and delivery centers,
mhm,
and we call them GDCs, right?
mhm.
They employ around 2 million employees at this point, and it is expected that by 2030, that would grow to 4.5 million. That is only foreign companies coming to India and setting up their tech operations.
Mhm,
That is the second, right, after IT service companies.
mhm,
And the third, considerable industry which has evolved in last decade or so is the startup ecosystem within India,
mhm,
right? So I think that startup trend really started after 2008
mhm,
recession,
mhm,
and now today India has more than 100 so-called unicorns,
mhm.
$1 billion plus valuation startups, and there are more than 25,000 startups thrive within India.
Wow.
Uh, and they typically solve either those complex challenges within India,
Mhm,
and many of them also serve global companies like Zoho,
mhm,
Freshworks,
mhm,
Oyo, and there are many more.
mhm,
And these startups have really changed the talent landscape,
mhm,
right? From that early days of service mindset,
mhm,
we said, hey, the talent mindset is changing to that solution driven. They want to make a mark
Hmm.
in our company they work for. They want to solve a problem. So we see that very considerable shift coming in last 1 decade,
Hmm.
where the capabilities, the skill sets of talents have evolved to solve those scalable complex problems.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's a great landscape. If there is a startup who want to come to India and hire talent who have that startup mindset, this is the startup ecosystem where they can look for.
Hmm.
If an established enterprise who want to come and hire people who believes in processes and structure, then these are the GCCs and IT companies who have that talent base from where they can acquire. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a massive talent pool,
Yeah.
and very excited and very optimistic that hey, India can be an amazing answer to global tech talent crunch.
Thank you for that overview. And it's incredible to think about that evolution as you described it, that kind of 40-year journey from maybe that old notion of India as being that sort of back office location to now, as you said, I mean, being actually the homegrown headquarters of a lot of amazing unicorn businesses that are dominating the tech scene. And so I think for folks who are outside of India and thinking about accessing talent in India, they really should broaden their thought process about what type of people they can engage in India, what type of talent they can hire there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's certainly what we're going to spend some more time talking about in just a minute. And so, as we shift into thinking about, okay, let's assume that an organization has decided that India may be a place that they do want to engage talent for their tech business. What are some of the challenges that they may encounter in trying to do that, whether they're a US headquartered company or a European headquartered company and they're looking to hire there? Maybe you could share some of what you see from your clients in terms of what maybe some of the misconceptions are or the challenges that they may need to overcome in order to make it work.
Oh yeah, no, true. So I think that awareness is required when companies are looking to hire from India, uh, right? And I think there are a few points here, so I'll try to focus on those areas. Uh, yeah, so wherever a company is looking to hire from India, first thing to consider is that hey, utmost clarity is what you are looking for, why you are looking for, right? And once you have that clarity, then there are certain aspects which needs to be taken care of. The first and foremost is those the differences in way of working,
Mm-hmm.
right? We call it cultural differences, right? Now, culture is typically defined, it is very deep rooted in how a society is evolved, right? So there is nothing right or wrong. But when we talk about culture in a business context, it is all about understanding the way of working for both employer and employee and find a middle ground which works, amazingly well for both the parties to get the job done and build those professional relationship, right? So if we talk about, and I think this topic is discussed a lot over internet. If we try to understand, there are two aspects, and the culturals are typically divided into two horizons. One is low context culture,
Mm-hmm.
which rely more on spoken and written words, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say what you mean what you say,
Mm-hmm.
and the people in this culture, understand those words and meaning behind that and focus on what has been spoken, written.
Mm-hmm.
For example, US falls into that low context culture zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Germany is even lower when it comes to that culture zone. Very direct, very to the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the business communication happens. India falls into high context culture zone, right? So here the communication goes beyond words.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, we Indians rely on those personal relationships, facial expressions, trying to read between lines. So that's how we typically learn and understand and communicate. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, having this understanding and awareness whenever someone is hiring from India is very different, because once you understand, hey, what are the differences, then it's easy to find a middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, for example, if someone is hiring from India, I think it is very important to communicate very clearly, set up the expectation, keep as much communication as possible in written.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you hear yes, probe and
Mm-hmm.
try to get a deeper answer,
Mm-hmm.
because as per our culture, saying no to someone, arguing with someone, or asking tough questions is typically kind of avoided. It doesn't mean it cannot be trained, but for that, that environment has to be created, and the company or the manager who is managing his team in India, I
Mm-hmm.
think understanding what kind of environment to be created where people open up, they become more candid,
Mm-hmm.
ask questions. I think those things have to be considered,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not difficult. We have done it with many of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
We have just launched a course on understanding the cultural differences for our talents.
Mm-hmm.
And this month, we are going to launch a 30-minute course for the companies who are hiring from India, and
Mm-hmm.
for them to understand, hey, how to manage those different ways of working. And then we'll share across with the audience once it is ready.
Interesting.
So that is one area certainly to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Second, when we talk about legal and compliance, I think the Indian legal and compliance structure is comparatively much more simpler than United States, right? We don't have federal and state kind of complexities.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is very, symmetric across all the states.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there are statutory compliance. If you are hiring a blue collar worker, right, at a very lower wage, then the compliance are more
Mm-hmm.
like minimum wages, the bonus act. There is something called ESIC, that is employee state insurance policy. Uh, there are saving schemes like provident fund,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it is more applicable to the low wage employees if you are hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Especially is tech, the compliances are comparatively lower,
Mm-hmm.
which are mostly around those provident funds, saving, professional tax,
Mm-hmm.
uh, gratuity, which is more about if an employee stays for more than 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
he is entitled for say 15 days pay per year when he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, a little complex mechanism is taxation,
Yeah.
because in India, the government expect companies to manage taxation of its employees.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
something called TDS, which is tax deducted at source.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As an employer, companies need to manage all those tax calculation of their employees based on different allowances, and they need to make sure that they pay the right tax to government on behalf of the employee. So these
Yes.
are some complexities, but I'm sure platforms like Remofirst,
Mm-hmm.
are taking. So you guys are taking that worry away from the customers when it comes to
Yeah.
managing compliance from India.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I
Yep.
think just to build on what you were sharing there, I think some of the taxes and benefits that you outlined are for sure, a part of the conversation that we're having with our clients as to what would be required in order to employ someone there. And I think, thinking about some of the solutions to those challenges is that, it makes sense for an employer from outside of India to really get some advice before starting to engage with a candidate in India, because whether it's India or any other location, we see people get that wrong time and time again, that they identify the talent and then they go right into discussing an offer of employment before they've really understood all of what would be required and included. And as you
Yeah.
say, it's not that it's so complex in India, it's just that it's important that you get those things right on the
Yeah.
front end. Otherwise, you may risk losing that candidate, or you could create other risks for the business over time. So, yeah.
And there are two part of it, right? And Remofirst plays the role there also.
Yeah.
One is what are the statutory compliance from the government,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the second is, hey, what are the expectations from the employees when they join,
Yes.
right? Because these two are very different things.
Yes.
For example, in India, medical insurance or accidental or health insurance is not mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
But a good talent would always expect that
Mm-hmm.
when join a company, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are leave policies. So, from legal and compliance point of view, maternity leave, and that these are, few things which we need to take care.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there is a standard expectation from the market that also need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
So I see these two are different things. One is what government, force you to do,
Mm-hmm.
and second, what are the best practices in market to hire a right talent.
Yes, that's so true. That is so true. Yes. So one other thing that I wanted to touch on, and this could be, considered a best practice or something to pay attention to, or could, fall into the challenges and solutions as well. But people talk a lot about time zones. So whether you're a European employer, a U.S. company, we've heard from a lot of U.S. companies that they're looking to markets like Latin America to engage tech talent, and one of the big drivers of that decision is actually time zone. And maybe that's true of Africa as a market for European employers. But I think, and I know you probably share this opinion, that maybe the time zone challenge is a bit overstated as far as India is concerned. And so, how do you think about that with some of the candidates that you guys engage with?
Yeah, I see that that is one of the biggest misconception I
Mm-hmm.
have heard from the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, See, Indian talents are very driven.
Yep.
The aspiration level is very high because they want to build their life from ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen that many of the talents are ready to work in different shift times.
Mm-hmm.
For example, out of our network of 200,000 talents, 60% are open to work in full US time zone. That
Wow.
is, a complete night shift for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it is a great opportunity, a good company, a better pay, good culture,
Mm-hmm.
and remote, right? Remote plays a very critical role here because working from home during night is much more convenient
Mm-hmm.
than traveling to office. I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of openness, for talents to adapt to those time zones.
Mm-hmm.
And typically we don't see any challenges adapting to UK or Europe time zone, which is very convenient in India.
Mm-hmm.
There are talents, whom we have deployed or clients have hired from us who start their work at 5 in the morning if they are
Mm-hmm.
working for an Australian company. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they are done by September,
Mm-hmm.
right? So time zone is I personally see that it's the biggest misconception
Mm-hmm.
that hey, it's a 10 and a half 11-hour difference, so that it would be very difficult for companies. But yeah, we have seen a lot of success in US companies coming to us hiring. Many demand full shift, many are okay with 4 hours of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And there are few companies who want the talent to work during their day shift.
Yeah.
But time zone, is not a big challenge when it comes to Indian talent ecosystem.
Okay.
And when you talk about misconception, I think another couple of big one I would love to cover up here. One, there is another kind of perception that hey, India is all about a low cost, low quality talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly this was the case 2 decades ago,
Mm-hmm.
but now today, the quality and the skill set of Indian talent have gone high. And if a company is looking to hire kind of a Silicon Valley caliber talent from India,
Mm-hmm.
much possible from those unicorn startups or one of the global companies who have set up their operations in India, who have that global mindset, great at technical skills, great at collaborative approach. So that low cost, low quality, perception
Mm-hmm.
is another thing which I hear a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the third one, which I would love to cover up here very quickly, is uh, you know still that perception of India, before say 2 decades, was of that infrastructure issues because India didn't have that internet and broadband penetration at that point of time.
Right.
But that has evolved massively in last 1 decade,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, India has, I was just reading a report before a few days. It's around 70 Mbps on an average, broadband availability across. And now we have 5Gs, where many of the talents are getting say 150, 200, 250 Mbps very easily,
Mhm.
even in smaller towns of India,
Right.
right? So yeah, the time zone, low cost, low quality, and infrastructure. I think these three I have heard
Mhm.
is misconceptions
Yes.
across.
That
Yeah.
infrastructure point is a really good one. I know one of the first companies that I worked for that had a large team in India. That was one of the challenges, that it was, effectively, if unless the person was physically in the co-located office location, they were not going to be able to access the internet. And we're talking again, 10 plus years ago. But it seems, to your point, and we hear from a lot of our clients, that those challenges have been addressed, in a significant way, which is great.
Yeah.
So previously, you had talked about some of the kind of mind-boggling statistics about, how many engineers are coming out of Indian universities, and just how large the talent pool is. And so, what comes along with that is, I'm sure, wild varying degrees of quality, as you said, just the same as you would find in the US or in any other market. And so finding the right talent, or, being able to match the right talent with the employer, I'm sure, is crucial. So maybe you could talk about, as an employer is thinking about India as the market, what kinds of strategies should they employ to find the right people based on the skill sets that they're looking for?
Yeah. So finding the right talent from India is like finding a needle from the haystack, right? Because it's a massive talent ecosystem. And at Uplers, we believe that hiring is means to an end, right? The objective of hiring is not just to hire, but hey, achieve some business objective. And for that, companies look for that right fit, right talent. Uh, so yeah, first of all, it starts with the basics, right? Having utmost clarity about what you are looking to hire. Spending a little bit more time there once you understand, hey, what are the possibilities to hire from India, getting that clarity that how your team is structured, what exactly you want to hire is half battle won, because we mostly see that that not having enough clarity is the first hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we talk about that entire hiring process, I'll divide that into three phases.
Mm-hmm.
Sourcing, that is attracting applications.
Mm-hmm.
Second is vetting and shortlisting the right talent.
Mm-hmm.
And the third is that selection and onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think let's cover this three areas in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if a company is looking to hire from India, there are many job boards which can be leveraged to source the right talent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So LinkedIn being the most obvious one, which is the most popular when it comes to India. Uh, and then job boards like local job boards like Naukri, Indeed, Monster, and there are many more. Uh, Especially if I talk about the remote hiring within India, we just did a survey of our network of 200,000 talent, because uh, that remote world is shifting, right? In India also now, many of the companies have started calling people back to work from office, like
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world. And I think world would take its own shape in next 1.5 2 years. But there is a strong uh, urge from Indian talent to join a remote job, a remote company.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is looking to hire, remote talent from India right now, you know, uh, they'll attract a lot of applications for sure,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one is posting on your own. Second is, you can hire, any recruitment staffing companies, to do the job, or platforms like Uplers, which
Mm-hmm.
can come to rescue to help source, curate, and onboard the right talent, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so that's the sourcing part. When someone is hiring from India, expect to receive plenty of applications if it's a remote job, if it's a good company and good pay.
Mm-hmm.
Because Indian talent look forward for these opportunities.
Right.
The bigger challenge is curating the right talent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's where the vetting, shortlisting capabilities comes into picture.
Mm-hmm.
And this vetting I would divide into three areas, which are very critical: technical, functional, and behavioral, right? So there are tools available when you want to, vet technical skills of a talent at scale, because expect to receive a lot of applications. So tools like Codility, HackerRank, and there are many,
Mm-hmm.
which can be leveraged to filter,
Mm-hmm.
those vetted talent. At Uplers, we have a 5-step vetting process, and we use these tools very effectively
Mm-hmm.
to curate the top-notch technical skills. Second is functional, which is all about, hey, if what kind of talent you are looking for. Are
Mm-hmm.
you looking for someone from specific industry? Are you looking for someone from specific experience? And that, and which are those companies, or where you can find pockets of these talents.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if a company is a startup and looking, possibly Bangalore, uh, you know, Delhi NCR could be a good geographical location to
Mm-hmm.
tap in. If you are looking for, say, a digital marketing talent, then possibly Mumbai, Pune could be a good place to start. So the India is a vast country, and like anywhere else in the world, I think the industries are clustered
Mm-hmm.
in specific geographies.
Okay.
So that understanding may help. The functional understanding that, hey, what kind of experience you are looking for. If you are a fintech startup, there are chances that you may be able to find someone who has worked in fintech for 3 years.
Yeah.
If someone is cyber security, there are chances that there are many companies or talents who have been working into cyber security space. So
Okay.
that is the functional aspect. And third is behavioral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it is remote, it becomes very crucial.
Yeah.
So one is the culture fit. How do you gauge the talent you are hiring is culturally fit,
Yeah.
for your team? And beyond that, you know, are they remote ready? Do they have that remote mindset? Do they have that global mindset? Are they proactive enough? Are they self motivated? Are they self learner?
Mm-hmm.
Are they curious to ask enough questions?
Mm-hmm.
Do they know? Do they have depth in whatever they have done so far? So
Mm-hmm.
these are the aspect, because Uplers is a remote company. We have 1,200 people remote team across India,
Mm-hmm.
and now we understand that, hey, what's the importance of that remote readiness?
Yeah.
And for India, remote is not for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So finding that talent who can succeed in remote working environment is equally crucial.
Yes.
So yeah, I think gauging technical skills, functional areas, and behavioral and remote readiness.
Okay.
Uh, these are the three critical areas one need to look for. Uh,
Yeah.
Beyond that, also understanding what are the typical benefits
Mm-hmm.
other companies in the same environments are offering,
Yeah.
right? Because that would be some expectation from the talent,
Yeah.
in terms of bonuses, variable pay, in terms of leave policies, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of insurances.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I think all those things have to be considered as part of the best practices.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And we may get into some of the conversation around benefits in a moment as well. And just to pull out a couple of things from what you said, I mean, one that was certainly music to my ears, given our focus at Remofirst, but you were saying sort of the attractiveness of remote roles to some of the talent in India now, given that some organizations are trying to bring people back to the office. That's certainly something we're seeing in other markets as well. And, we love to see people embracing that freedom of work. Beyond that, I think you brought out an interesting point about regional clusters. I mean, it's the same thing in the US, where people sometimes think of the US as this sort of homogeneous population when it comes to the talent. But in reality, you would go to LA for digital marketing talent, or you would go to, Boston for robotics talent, for example, and so on and so forth. So understanding those regional clusters and not just thinking about an Indian talent strategy, but maybe think regionally, I think would be important. And then, you've mentioned it a few times, but that remote readiness if you had two candidates who on paper looked exactly the same in terms of their technical and functional capabilities, if one is remote ready and the other is not prepared to work for a company from overseas, for example, or maybe adjust their time zones, you're going to enter into some real challenges there. The only thing I was going to add in terms of some of the case studies we've seen with some of our clients is, the criticality of that first hire. So one, as you said, making sure that you get everything right in terms of the benefits that you want to offer, and that you can put together an effective offer letter for that candidate and addressing all of their needs. But if you do put in the time and effort to do that assessment across those three areas that you mentioned, and you do find that right person, the things that can unlock for you in terms of your next hire and the next hire is unbelievable. We see a lot of our clients who start with that one hire, and then we look back 6 months and 12 months later, and we've had clients hire as many as 20 people in that short span of time, because that first hire was able to sort of bring them into other networks that they didn't realize were possible, friends of theirs, people that they had previously worked with. And I'm sure you see some of that as well. But curious to hear, any other case studies you can share from some of your clients.
Yeah, so I think we have supported many clients to leverage Indian talent ecosystem. So, for example, one of the client, called Tenium, they are endpoint security management platform. They are into cyber security domain, with headquarter in Austin, Texas, right? And their challenge was to build a team fast enough. They were launching, a new module in the market, and they wanted to build a team of 17 in 4 weeks. So I think they came to us with a very clear requirement. They were super fast in selecting the talent, taking interviews. Now we were able to help them build a team of around 17 members in 4 weeks, because in India, that availability of the talent, if it's a right job, right company, if it's remote, wow, we can really scale up the hiring there. You mentioned about digital talent, right? So a company called Brill Media, which is a performance marketing agency based out of LA, California. They were finding it very difficult to hire good performance marketers within their budget. And they came to us, as you mentioned, they hired their first talent. They were super happy, and now they have a team of 10, and they are hiring more from us. So I think you rightly mentioned that it is going with the right homework. Hey, what you need, putting enough effort in hiring your first talent, and then things start unfolding after that.
Good. Thank you for that. No, I appreciate that. So we are going to move to some Q&A in just a second. And one of the things that you mentioned that I'm curious to ask you about, before we get to some of the audience questions, is Uplers. As you said, you guys are a remote company and you have 1,200 employees, which is obviously, no small task to manage that large of a team. So what are maybe some of the things that you've instituted as a CEO and to help sort of enable remote work across that large of a team, or any kind of tips you can share with other CEOs on the line who might be interested in how to make that a success for their own teams?
Well, yeah. So I think a lot of areas, right? Because we also were pushed to remote because of COVID, but we saw the value of being a remote company. So we are doing a lot of we are bringing a lot of creative solutions to the problems we are seeing.
Yeah.
Working remotely. And one of the biggest one we see is that, hey, that connect between people, right? Those emotional connect, understanding of each other.
Yeah.
And one very interesting thing we do at Uplers is we run so-called workations, where we hire a property somewhere in a very interesting scenic area, and our team in small chunks go there, spend a week together, day and night, have fun, work together, and then go back to their home to work from. So that is something which is really working. And then a lot of other areas. So we already have a kind of a remote working consultant on board who is helping us streamline a lot of our, the culture, communication, documentation, HR best practices, which help us function amazingly as a remote company.
Got it. That's amazing. And I hope I can get an invite to one of these
Yeah.
questions coming up. That would be wonderful. Another question we have from the audience in this case. So I think people are always interested in what are the specific skill sets or roles that maybe you're seeing that are either highest in demand or either that or the most available in India. So maybe you could comment on, in the tech space specifically, what are you seeing from clients and what's in demand at the moment?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, India is a very large talent ecosystem, and we have roles in majority of the skill set, right? Because many companies have, built those skills within their organizations. But typically, what we see in demand, those, hard to find kind of skill sets, data analyst, full stack developers, Python developers. We see a demand for AI, ML engineers these days, blockchain developers. So these are those niche, hard to find, in demand skill set. And plus, we also see a lot of demand for those traditional skill sets like .NET, Java, database administrators, demand for Salesforce, SAP, and many other skill sets. Plus, digital marketing is another area where we serve a lot of agencies, and they need those digital marketers, performance marketers, marketing automation experts from India.
Interesting. Yeah, I can imagine. You mentioned AI specifically. I can imagine everyone's phone is ringing off the hook with opportunities for AI focus roles. So that's interesting. Thank you for the feedback. And then, as somebody who loves to answer questions with "it depends," I'm going to ask you a sort of "it depends" question that we got from one of the audience members. But what kind of salary ranges should people expect in India? You've commented that it is not just a low-cost market, right? That there can be many different ways you could define the talent opportunity in India. But can you give us a sense of maybe what types of salary ranges you're seeing for key roles?
Yeah, and probably, I'll talk about the salary ranges for what we call a top Indian talent ready for global teams, right? Who are great at communication, great at technical skills, who can succeed in remote environment. So typically, this kind of talent, because we curate probably top 2% of the talent from India, and the salary ranges are for those. So if it is about the on-demand skills, I said about front-end, back-end, Python, DevOps, consider anywhere between at least 35,000 to $60,000-$70,000 a year range. It's very broad, but it all depends on what kind of skill set and experience someone is looking for. And if these are niche skills like AI, ML, data science, that bar goes a bit higher. So 50 to 80,000 range. But yeah, this is the typical 35 to 80,000 range.
Okay.
For those top deeply weighted, top-notch talent.
Excellent. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're gonna pause it there, and we're gonna wrap up. But first of all, Jamin, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time with us today. I know I've learned a lot from this conversation, and as we talked about right at the beginning, I mean, there are just so many reasons why our shared clients are very interested in the Indian market, and I expect that interest is only going to grow from here. So I want to thank everybody that was able to join us today, and thank you for your questions and participation. But on behalf of Remofirst, Jamin, we really appreciate it. And then if there's anything you'd like to share before we wrap up, thank you again.
No, it was a very interesting conversation, Dave. Good. Right? It was a pleasure being on this webinar. And yeah, really thoroughly enjoyed our talk. And thanks a ton for very interesting questions to the audience.
Good. Our pleasure. Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll end it there. Have a nice day.
Awesome. Thanks.